Have you ever loved someone quietly, so deeply, but never found the courage to say it? Felix loved Bucky quietly. It was not in a dramatic way or that kind you watch in movies full of comic scenes, but in the real way people love when they are scared of losing someone by saying too much. Both of them were friends since childhood, very good friends, the kind who shared playlists, visited each other at school, celebrated birthdays, exchanged many inside jokes, arranged holidays and relaxation together, and have those conversations that only happen after midnight when people get honest by accident. One evening, Buki asked Felix,
Do you think people really find someone who feels like home?
the question hit him hard. He was not expecting it, or should I say prepared for it. Because Buki was asking about love, Felix wanted to say yes. He wanted to tell her it was possible, because he felt it every time she looked at him. But fear held him still. He mumbled something vague and acted uneasy. Maybe. I guess it happens for some people. She nodded, not noticing the tremble in his voice. Years later, Buki moved away from the city, and life happened. Distance became the new normal. No hard feelings, no drama. The two were living their lives as they were. Felix's cousin, Steve, proposed to Buki, and that was it. Few months later, Steve and Buki were both married. Felix opened an old message thread and saw he had the opportunities to speak his heart. Even Buki tried to help him. Those exact moments replayed in his mind, and he finally understood. The most painful love isn't the one unreturned, but the love we were too afraid to give. He blamed himself for it. When the night is quiet, he whispers the answer he never gave her. Yes,
People do find home. I just didn't know how to tell you you were mine.
you were mine. This tells us that some opportunities missed may never be recovered when we refuse to take them. If you are moved by this story, please give it a thumbs up and share your own experience with us in the comment section below. The love you are afraid to give. Chapter 2. The Wedding Invitation. Felix saw the invitation on his phone before he felt it in his chest. A simple message. No drama. No long explanation. Hi, Felix. I hope you're well. Steve and I are getting married next month. I'd really love you to be there. He stared at the screen longer than necessary. Married. The word felt heavier than he expected. Not sharp. Not loud. Just final. He locked his phone and leaned back on the couch. His cousin Steve had told him weeks ago, casually, "Man, I'm proposing to Bucky soon." Felix had smiled then, congratulated him, even helped him think through the ring. That was the strange thing about quiet love. It made you an expert at pretending you were fine. His phone buzzed again. Congratulations. I'm really happy for you both. The lie didn't hurt as much as the truth would have. Later that evening, Steve called. "Bro, you got the invite, right?" "Yes," Felix said. "I did." "Good. I really want you there. Your family." "Family?" Felix swallowed. "She keeps talking about how much she hopes you'll come," Steve continued. "She said you've always been important to her." "Important?" Felix laughed softly. "She's always been kind." There was a pause. "You okay?" Steve asked. "You sound distant." "I'm fine," Felix replied quickly. Too quickly. Just tired. That night, Felix walked through the city alone. Every place held a memory. The cafe where Bucky used to steal fries from his plate. The park bench where they once talked until sunrise. The bus stop where she hugged him just a second longer than usual. He sat on that bench now. A couple nearby laughed loudly. Another argued quietly. Life didn't stop because his heart had. He imagined the wedding. Bucky in white. Steve smiling. Him standing somewhere in the crowd, clapping politely. Invisible. His phone buzzed again. "You don't have to come if it's uncomfortable. I just wanted you to know you matter to me." He typed, deleted, typed again. I'll be there. When he hit send, something inside him cracked, not loudly, just enough to finally be felt. That night, as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, one question refused to leave him alone. What if she had asked that question years ago? Because she was waiting for him to answer differently? Watch out for Chapter 3. If he says it wrong, he might lose everything. If you are enjoying the story, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button, and for more enjoyable stories, thank you. Chapter 3. If he says it wrong, he might lose everything. Felix didn't always know how to stay quiet. He learned it. It started when he was 8. He still remembered the afternoon clearly, not because anything dramatic happened, but because nothing did. His mother was in the kitchen, back turned, stirring a pot that smelled like onions and tomatoes. The radio hummed softly. His father sat at the table, reading the newspaper, glasses slipping down his nose. Felix stood in the doorway, school bag still hanging off one shoulder. "Mom," he said. She didn't turn. I got picked for the school play." Silence. Not the bad kind, just unresponsive. "That's nice," she said eventually. "Put your bag away." He lingered. "They said I was good," he added. "They said I read the lines really well." His father folded the paper.
That won't pay bills,
He said, not unkindly, just firmly. Felix nodded. Okay. He went to his room and closed the door. That was the first time he learned something important. Excitement wasn't always welcome. Feelings weren't always useful. Words didn't always land where you hoped they would. So he began to measure them. By 10, he had mastered silence. At school, teachers described him as polite, well-behaved, thoughtful. What they meant was, he didn't demand attention. When he liked a girl for the first time, he didn't tell her. He just sat next to her and shared his lunch. When his best friend moved away, he didn't cry. He just waved longer than necessary. Bucky met him around that time. She was loud in a gentle way. Not obnoxious, just present.
Why don't you talk much?
She asked him once, swinging her legs off a playground bench. Felix shrugged. I talk. No, she smiled. You respond. That made him laugh. She talked enough for both of them anyway. She filled spaces Felix didn't know how to. And without realizing it, he let her. As they grew older, people often mistook their closeness for romance. You two would make sense, someone once said. Buki laughed it off. Felix didn't. That night, he almost told her. They were lying on the floor of his room, music playing softly. Buki, he said. Yeah?
I ever tell you...
His phone buzzed.
Hello?
A message from his father. Don't forget tomorrow. Be responsible. Felix swallowed. Never mind, he said. Buki turned her head. You sure? Yeah. She studied him for a moment.
You do that a lot.
Do what? He smiled weakly. I don't know what you mean. She didn't push. That was Bucky's gift and her flaw. She respected silence, even when it cost her clarity. Years later, Felix would realize how many people didn't ask twice. How many moments only knock once. That night, lying alone in his room, Felix stared at the ceiling and thought something he would think many times in life. If I say it wrong, I might lose everything. If I say nothing, at least I get to keep this. So he chose quiet. Again. And it worked. Watch out for Chapter 4. Almost and if onlys. Chapter 4. Almosts and if onlys. There were so many moments Felix almost spoke. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't come with warnings. They arrived disguised as ordinary days. One afternoon, they sat in Bucky's car, parked outside his building. The engine was off, but the heat hadn't left yet. Music played quietly one of their playlists. Bucky drummed her fingers on the steering wheel. You ever think about leaving this city? She asked. Felix turned toward her. All the time. Really? Yeah. I just don't say it out loud. She smiled. Figures. She leaned her head back against the seat. Sometimes I think I'll wake up one day and everything will look different. Same streets, same people, but I won't fit anymore. Felix felt something tighten in his chest. You fit, he said. Here. She turned to him. With what? With who? The answer sat right there. With me? His mouth opened. A car horn blared nearby. Someone laughed loudly on the sidewalk. The moment fractured. I mean, he said instead, you make things lighter, wherever you go. She studied him. You say things like that, she said slowly, and then act like they don't mean anything. He laughed nervously. They don't. I mean they do. Just not like that. She looked away. That's confusing, she said. He nodded. I know. Another almost. Another night, they lay on opposite ends of her bed, fully clothed, talking about nothing and everything. Promise me something, Bucky said. What? If I ever start dating someone seriously, you'll tell me honestly how you feel. Felix's heart slammed against his ribs. Why would that matter? He asked. Because you matter, she replied. Silence stretched between them. Okay, he said finally. I promise. She smiled, satisfied. Felix turned his face toward the wall. That promise would haunt him. There was the night she cried. They had argued about something small, always something small. You don't fight for things, she said, wiping her eyes. You just accept them. I don't like conflict, Felix replied. No, she said, voice breaking. You don't like risk. The word lingered. I'm right here, she continued. But sometimes it feels like I'm alone in this friendship. That was the moment. He could have told her, could have said, I'm scared because I care. I don't fight because I don't know how to survive losing you. Instead, he said, I'm trying. She nodded. I know. But her eyes said she wasn't sure. Another almost. The closest one came quietly. They were walking home after a long day. The streetlights cast soft halos on the pavement. Bookie slipped her arm through his. Felix, she said, almost casually, do you think we'll always be like this? Like what? Us. He slowed his steps. I don't know, he said. Life changes. Does it? She asked. Or do people just get tired of waiting? He stopped walking. Bucky turned to face him. For a second, everything was still. No music. No cars. No interruptions. This was it. Felix began. His phone vibrated. A message from Steve. You coming tomorrow? Big plans. Felix exhaled. Never mind, he said. Bucky's face fell just slightly. Enough to notice. Enough to hurt. Okay, she said softly. They kept walking. Years later, Felix would replay these moments, like scenes from a film he wished he could edit. If only he hadn't laughed it off. If only he hadn't waited for the perfect timing. If only he hadn't believed silence was safer than truth. Because silence doesn't protect love. It postpones it. And sometimes, postponement is the same as loss. If you are enjoying this story, please comment, yes. Like, share, subscribe, and click the notification button to know when the next chapter comes up. Thank you. Chapter 5. After the yes. Felix found out Bookie was dating Steve the same way he found out most things now. Late, accidentally, and without context. Someone mentioned it casually. Oh, Bucky and Steve? Yeah, they've been seeing each other for a while. Seeing each other. Felix nodded, like it was new information, even though something in him had already known. Steve, Felix, Bucky, and a couple of their friends have made out in the past at games, at cinemas, at parties, at gym, at picnics, at entertainment centers, and interesting places you can think of. And something has been building up. Yes, something. Felix didn't ask questions. He never did. But suddenly, the city felt different. Not smaller, just rearranged. Bookie didn't disappear from his life. That was the strange part. She still texted him. Still laughed the same way. Still said his name like it meant something familiar. But now, there were pauses. New rhythms. I can't talk long, she'd say. Steve's here. Felix would smile at his phone. No worries. And he meant it until he didn't. One evening, she asked him to meet her for coffee. She wants you to meet him, Steve had said earlier that week, grinning. She talks about you like you're part of the furniture. Permanent. Permanent. Felix arrived early. Bucky walked in with Steve beside her, fingers intertwined. She looked happy. Not the loud, carefree happy Felix remembered, but settled. Grounded. This is Steve, she said, I've told you about him. Steve extended his hand. Good to finally meet you. Felix shook it. Likewise. They sat. The conversation flowed easily. Too easily. Steve was kind, attentive, present. That hurt more than if he had been careless. She says you've been there forever, Steve said, smiling at Buki. Felix laughed softly. I guess I just never left. Buki met his eyes. For a moment, something passed between them. An unspoken acknowledgement of how true that was. Steve and Felix at that time never knew they were even related, because their families have long been distant. Later, when Steve stepped away to take a call, Bucky leaned closer. You okay? She asked. Felix nodded. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? She hesitated. You seem quieter. I've always been quiet. She smiled sadly. Not like this. He wanted to tell her that watching her fall in love felt like standing outside a house he helped build, warming his hands at a fire he could never step into. Instead, he said, I'm happy for you. She searched his face. Are you? Yes. This time, the lie hurt. After that, things shifted faster. Photos appeared online. Weekend trips. Shared jokes Felix wasn't part of. He became a spectator. Buki still reached out, but differently. You'd love him, she said once. Felix stared at the message for a long time. I think I already do, he replied. That night, he sat alone in his apartment, replaying the words she had used when Steve proposed. Yes. Such a small word. Such a powerful one. He had withheld his. Steve had offered his. And Bucky had chosen. Felix didn't resent her. That was the cruelest part. He respected her choice because he had helped create the silence that led to it. Love didn't leave him. It just relocated to a place where it could no longer speak. What out for Chapter 6? Will things change? If you are enjoying this story, please comment yes, like, subscribe, share. Chapter 6. The Woman Who Asks Questions. Felix met a lady on a day he wasn't looking for anything. That was usually how things happened. She sat across from him at a small bookstore cafe, one of those places where people pretended to read but mostly watched life pass by through the window. Felix had been going there for years. It was quiet, predictable, safe. Is that seat taken? She asked. He looked up surprised. No. She smiled and sat anyway, setting her coffee down carefully, like she was aware of space, his space. I'm Franca, she said. I promise I won't talk your ear off. Felix smiled politely. Felix? She glanced at the book in front of him. You've been on the same page for a while. He looked down, embarrassed. Is it that obvious? Yes, she said, amused. Your eyes move, but your thoughts don't. That was new. Most people mistook his quiet for calm, or intelligence, or mystery. No one ever called it what it was. Distraction. I wasn't really reading, he admitted. I know, she said gently. You were hiding. The word landed softly, but it landed. They talked after that. Not about anything important. Music. Books. Why people preferred familiar pain over unfamiliar joy. Franca listened differently. She didn't rush silence, but she didn't worship it either. So, she said at one point, stirring her coffee, are you always this careful with words? Felix shrugged. I choose them well. No, she replied. You ration them. He laughed, unsure whether to feel exposed or impressed. Is that bad? He asked. Not always, she said, but it's expensive. They met again the next week, and the week after that. Felix noticed something unsettling. He didn't rehearse conversations with Franca beforehand. He didn't measure every sentence. He just spoke. One evening, as they walked past a row of dimly lit shops, Franca stopped suddenly. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Who broke your heart?" Felix didn't answer. She didn't rush him. Finally, he said, "No one." Franca tilted her head. "That's not true." He frowned. "You don't know me. I know that people who say no one usually mean everyone, or themselves." That one hurt. Felix exhaled slowly. "I loved someone once." "Once?" she asked. He corrected himself. "I still do." Franca nodded. "Did she know?" The answer burned. "No." "Did she choose someone else?" "Yes." "And you stayed quiet?" Felix stopped walking. "How do you know that?" he asked. She shrugged. "Men who speak softly usually carry loud regrets." Silence stretched between them. This silence was different. Not empty. Not safe. Inviting. "I thought keeping quiet would protect me," Felix said finally. "And her." Franca looked at him carefully. "Did it?" He shook his head. "No," he admitted. "It just delayed the pain." Franca smiled sadly. "Delayed pain always collects interest," she said. They reached the corner where they usually parted. Before leaving, Franca turned to him. "Felix," she said, "you don't need to become louder." "Then what?" he asked. "You need to become braver." She walked away before he could respond. Felix stood there long after she was gone, realizing something unsettling. Buki had taught him what love felt like. Franca was teaching him what honesty demanded. And for the first time in a long while, Felix wasn't sure which lesson scared him more. If you are enjoying this story, please comment yes. Chapter 7. Thank you for telling me. Felix didn't plan the conversations with Franca. They happened because some things refuse to stay buried once they've been named. But then, Franca's words followed him for days. "You don't need to become louder. You need to become braver." So when Bucky called him that evening, he didn't deflect. "Are you free?" she asked. "Just for a walk. I need air." "Yeah," he said. "I'm free." They met at the old park, the one that had survived renovations and time, stubbornly unchanged. The swings still creaked. The benches still remembered them. Buki arrived wrapped in a light jacket, hair pulled back loosely. She looked settled. That was the hardest part. They walked side by side for a while, not touching, not distant either. "How are you?" she asked. "I'm okay," Felix said, then corrected himself. "I'm learning." She smiled. "That sounds like the you I know." They sat on a bench beneath a tree that had outlived most of their conversations. Buki exhaled slowly. "Steve and I are moving," she said. "Another city." Felix nodded. "I figured." She glanced at him. "You're taking this well." "I must have practiced," he replied. She laughed softly, then grew serious. "Felix, can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Were you ever?" She stopped. "Never mind." "No," he said gently. "Please go on." She stared at the ground. "Were you ever afraid of losing me?" she asked. The honesty of the question cracked something open that Felix had carefully bottled all this while. Felix didn't rush this time. "Yes," he said, "every day." Bucky looked up, surprised. She asked quietly, "Then why did it always feel like I was the only one fighting to hold us together, like I was standing alone?" Felix swallowed, the weight of his own mistakes pressing down on him. "Because I mistook fear for wisdom," he said. "I thought silence meant control. I thought if I didn't say it wrong, I wouldn't lose you. I believed that if I held back, I could keep you safe." Her voice trembled. "So what did you lose instead?" He met her eyes. "You." The word fell between them. Not heavy, not sharp, just true. Bucky looked away, blinking fast. "There were moments," she said slowly, "when I thought I imagined things, like Maybe I wanted more, because I was lonely. You weren't imagining it, Felix said. I just never found the words to say it. She laughed softly through the ache. You know, she said, I asked you so many questions because I was hoping you'd stop me and say something different, something real. I know, he replied. I see that now. Why didn't you? She asked. Just once? Felix took a breath he had been holding for years. Because loving you felt like holding something fragile, he said. And I was afraid my hands would ruin it. Bucky nodded slowly. I wish you had trusted me enough to let me decide that. Felix wished he did too. They sat in silence, the kind that didn't need protection anymore. I loved you, Felix said at last. I still do. Not in a way that asks for anything, just in a way that needed to be said. Buki closed her eyes briefly. Thank you, she whispered, for telling me. She stood. Felix stood too. They faced each other, no unfinished sentences left between them now. I'm glad you're learning to speak, she said. I just wish I hadn't been the lesson. So do I, he replied. She hugged him then. Not tightly, not loosely. Just, finally. When she walked away, Felix didn't follow. For the first time, silence didn't feel like loss. It felt like release. If you are enjoying this story, comment yes. And please like, share, subscribe, and click the notification button to know when the next chapter comes up. And for more enjoyable stories, thank you. Chapter 8. Letting Go Without Closure. After that evening chat with Bucky at the park, Felix thought the conversation with her would bring relief. In some ways, it did. But closure, he learned, was not a door that closed cleanly behind you. It was a room you learned to stop revisiting. The days after their walk passed gently, almost deceptively normal. No dramatic emptiness. No sudden peace. Just space. And space can feel unfamiliar when you've lived your whole life holding your breath. Felix still reached for his phone sometimes to send her a song, a joke, a passing thought. His fingers would hover, then stop. Not everything needs to be shared anymore, he reminded himself. That was new. One afternoon, he found himself back at the bookstore cafe. Franca was already there, seated by the window. You look lighter, she said as he sat down. Do I? He asked. Yes, she replied, like someone who put something down. He stirred his coffee. I finally told her, he said. Franca didn't ask who. How did it go? She asked. It didn't change anything, Felix said, then added, but it changed me. Franca nodded. That's usually how it works. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. I used to think closure meant hearing the right response, Felix continued. Like if she reacted a certain way, I could move on. And now? Franca asked. Now I think closure is just accepting that the story already ended and choosing not to reopen it. Franca smiled. That's brave. Felix shook his head. It feels more like surrender. Same thing, she said. That night, Felix went home and did something he had avoided for years. He deleted the message thread. Not out of bitterness. Not out of anger. Out of respect for what was and what could no longer be. The silence that followed was different. It didn't echo. It rested. Felix started noticing things again. The way mornings felt slower when he didn't rush through them. The way laughter came easier when it wasn't guarded. The way honesty, once practiced, made room for presence. He still loved Buki, but no longer as an ache. More like a chapter he was grateful he had read. Franca watched these changes quietly. One evening, as they walked through the city, she said, "You're not disappearing into yourself anymore." Felix smiled. I got tired of living halfway. She stopped walking. Then promise me something, she said. What? Don't make me guess what you feel. Felix met her eyes. I won't, he said. And for the first time, the promise didn't feel heavy. It felt possible. If you are enjoying this story, comment yes. And please, like, thank you. Chapter 9. Learning a New Language. Felix discovered that honesty was a skill. Not a moment. Not a sudden transformation, A skill. And like every skill he had ever avoided, it felt awkward at first. He caught himself mid-sentence sometimes, about to soften the truth, dilute it, make it easier to swallow. Then he stopped. "No," he would say, gently correcting himself. "That's not what I mean." Franca noticed. "You do that now," she said one evening as they sat on the steps outside his building. "Do what?" Pause. Then say the real thing. Felix smiled. "I'm trying not to lie politely." She laughed. "Good. Polite lies are exhausting." They didn't rush into labels. That was another difference. There was no unspoken expectation hanging between them, no guessing game disguised as romance. Just two people choosing to show up honestly, one sentence at a time. Still, fear didn't vanish. It visited quietly. On nights when Franca leaned closer than usual. On days when Felix felt happiness without anxiety and wondered how long it would last. One evening, they cooked together in his small kitchen. Music played low. Something familiar hummed in the air. Franca handed him a spoon. "Taste." He did. "Too much salt." She grinned. "I knew it." They leaned against the counter, shoulders brushing. Felix felt the old instinct rise, the urge to retreat, to stay safe inside himself. Instead, he spoke. "I get scared when things feel good," he said. Franca turned to him. "Why?" "Because I think they'll disappear if I acknowledge them." She nodded slowly. "And what happens if you don't?" "They disappear anyway," he admitted. Franca reached for his hand. "That's the risk," she said. "Not losing things. Letting them exist." Felix squeezed her fingers. That night, after she left, Felix sat alone, not with regret, but reflection. He realized something unsettling and freeing. Love hadn't hurt him. Avoidance had. The silence he once mistook for protection had cost him years of connection, not just with Buki, with himself. The next time he saw Franca, he didn't wait. "I like you," he said plainly, as they stood in line for coffee. She raised an eyebrow. "That's it?" "That's all," he replied. "No poetry, no escape routes." She smiled. "That's my favorite language." Felix exhaled. Not relief, release. Because speaking didn't feel like losing control anymore. It felt like choosing presence. If you are enjoying this story, comment yes. And please like, share, subscribe, and click the notification, the love that you are afraid to give. Chapter 10. This time, I spoke. There was no moment when Felix suddenly felt healed than now. A morning arrived the way mornings always did. Soft, ordinary, honest. Felix stood at his kitchen window, watching the city wake up. People hurried past with coffee cups and unfinished thoughts. He used to envy their certainty. Now, he envied their willingness to keep moving. His phone buzzed. A message from Franca. "Are you still coming later?" Felix smiled. "Yes, I wouldn't miss it," he replied. He meant that not as reassurance, but as truth. When they met later that afternoon, Franca was already there, sitting on the low wall outside the park. She looked up when she saw him. "You look calm," she said. "I feel present," he replied. They walked without urgency. No heavy conversations. No need to define what hadn't finished becoming itself. At one point, Franca stopped and faced him. "I want to ask you something," she said. Felix nodded. "Okay. If one day this stops being easy, will you still talk to me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said, "even if I'm afraid. Especially then." Franca studied his face, searching for escape routes. She didn't find any. "Good," she said softly. "That's all I needed." They sat on the grass as the afternoon thinned into evening. Felix thought about Buki not with longing, but gratitude. She had been the question. Franca felt like the answer, but not in the way he once imagined answers arrived. Not perfect. Not final. Just honest. As the sun dipped lower, Felix spoke again, because he could now. "I don't know how this story ends," he said. Franca smiled. "Neither do I. But I know this," he continued. "I won't disappear inside myself anymore." She reached for his hand. "That's enough," she said. Felix felt something settle, not excitement, not fear. Alignment. This time, he understood that love wasn't about timing or certainty. It was about presence. And when the moment asked something of him, this time, he spoke. But will Felix get along well with Franca? Find out in Season 2.